Well, celebrityism sucks. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of the Apple TV Plus original movie, Outcome. This film is directed by Jonah Hill. Okay, so Jonah Hill is back in another directorial effort, his first of two films of 2026, and he has garnered a pretty substantial cast of individual actors and directors to be in his new movie about a character named Reef Hawk, who's played by Keanu Reeves, who is 5 years sober and decides after a possibility something's going to be leaked, to start apologizing to everyone that he has ever kind of put to the wayside, I guess you could say, whether it be his old acting coach, his old producers, anybody in his life. And because he's really famous, he starts to believe that his image is more important than the people around him. He basically is trying to, not only with the help of his crisis lawyer, played by Jonah Hill, but also his good friends who are played by Diaz and Matt Bomer, to basically try to reconfigure his image, which he has been trying to reconfigure for the last 5 years of being sober. And basically it's a story about loneliness. It's a story about who is more important to us. It's a story about celebrityism and the idea of, like, you know, who really is out there to help us and who really isn't. And it's also a story about how we are so focused on the world around us in a social media fashion that we are not willing to look inside what really is truly important, and how we are trying to look for that 15 seconds of fame, as Jonah Hill has said. So that is basically Outcome in a nutshell. It's about a guy who is trying to find himself in a world where he's very famous and misguided and kind of a jerk. And how do you retcon that and reimagine yourself in a much better light when you don't see what's right in front of you? So that's what Outcome is about, basically. So Jonah Hill is an individual that has garnered a reputation in Hollywood, pretty negative, to be fairly honest. And a movie like this seems like he's trying to work through a few things in his own life and trying to put on screen about how he maybe makes mistakes and how he sees the world. And if you've ever seen interviews with him, you know, he's been put in a very difficult situation when it comes to his weight, people misinterpreting him. And on top of everything, social media has garnered such a big stance in this world that, it's one of those things where, 15 seconds of fame is what we are looking for. We're not looking for actual, friendships and stuff like that. We're looking for, the next try to big payday, as the person in this movie is trying to get with a possible video that they have of Reef Hawk. And so with that said, I didn't really know much about this movie, to be fairly honest. I know Jonah Hill was directing 2 movies this year, but I noticed that Keanu Reeves was in this movie, and I'm always up for a good Keanu Reeves performance because I think he's a very talented actor that gets put into a stereotype. And in the last 20 years, he's done The Matrix, he's done John Wick, he's done a few other things. So a more dramatic, dark comedy performance is something that he's capable of doing. And that leads me to my honest review of this movie. And I will definitely say that this is actually quite a good movie, to be fairly honest. This is quite a good directorial effort. It's very weird. It's got the cinematographer that has worked on some Gaspar Noé films. So the level of fantastical, the level of like hyper realism in the shots that Jonah Hill is showing with his cinematographer is really fascinating. It's a movie that is very kind of chaotic. It's very weird, but it's also a movie with a lot of things to say about, society in general, about what happens when you become famous, about how you use that to kind of, I guess you could say, belittle people and kind of throw the people that are important to you to the side. It gives you a new perspective on like the things that you are capable of now of having that are fake, that are not real. Social media in general, which has kind of shaped the landscape of today's society, is a very difficult situation. You watch it with like Reef Hawk's mother, who's played by Susan Lucci, who is, a housewife, reality star. You look at like at one of his old teachers, who's played by Martin Scorsese. There's a lot of stuff that Reef Hawk does that he has to atone for, and he's more worried about the social media side. So therefore, he has this crisis lawyer who's trying to keep everything under wraps. And it's just basically a very poetic, it's very melancholy. It's very dark. It's very humorous. but it's also reflectiveness in his nature. And I think Keanu Reeves gives like his career best performance in this movie, whether it's an Oscar worthy performance is, whether that's here or there. But I think Keanu Reeves and the script are so strong in this movie that it gives Keanu Reeves a lot to work with, a lot of how to make the strengths of him as an actor come out and actually become pretty potent, to be fairly honest. And watching him try to apologize to people, and watching the people, the actors and everybody involved with his career try to, show him like kind of who he was and what he is and how he's trying to atone for that. It's a really powerful message, and it really works on a very interesting level that I didn't know Jonah Hill was capable of. And it's nothing against Jonah Hill, because he's a very capable actor. It's just I wasn't expecting this level of maturity in a film. And it does have the mannerisms and the chaotic nature of what Jonah Hill is known for, his cursing and his over the top strangeness and silliness. And he's a very interesting director when it comes to that realm. And that beard that he has, whether it's fake or not, is something else. And the fact that he went bald, the fact that he's like the clothes he's wearing. But as the movie moves along, and as you see kind of the layers start kind of falling apart of Reeves' world, you start seeing kind of how the people feel about him. He has a couple friends who have been like lifelong friends with him, who are played by Cameron Diaz and Matt Bomer. At first, they seem just kind of superficial, that they're there just because of his celebrity. But like Jonah Hill's character, like Susan Lucci's character, like Drew Barrymore's character that pops up in this, like Martin Scorsese's character. The things we do, the things we put on persona really shape who we are. And this movie does a really great job of portraying that. And the darker, deeper leanings and meanings that Jonah Hill and his writer Ezra Woods are doing here are pretty poetic and pretty prophetic. And the movie hit me pretty deep. I mean, there's some moments where I actually teared up a little bit. And whether this movie is going to hit with audiences, I mean, it is an Apple TV Plus original movie, so it might not be seen by a lot of people, but I think this movie is pretty profound with what it's trying to do. And I think using the cinematographer from, Gaspar Noé's films, and then having that hyper realism really shows like how absurd and how out there and how insane, the bright pastels and like the overexposure of light and just everything about it just shows you how fake and unnerving and unreal the movie becomes. And then you have all these people and kind of the anxiety that is portrayed in the whole movie, and how, watching just like people approach Reef and how people, like him for what, what he's done more than who he is inside. And when the eventual kind of revelations start happening and what is actually the pertaining to this movie, which once again is only like an hour 16 minutes, but an hour and 20 minutes with credits. Yeah, it has to do a lot, and it does it pretty well. And there's some really great moments in here that are very funny. There's pictures on the wall in the crisis office that you'll notice that you'll find very, very funny and very kind of important. And once again, Jonah Hill's beard and everything, and David Spade pops up in this, and like I said, he's got it has like a great cast of individuals. But once again, the standout, of course, is Keanu Reeves, just because he gives such a great performance in this movie, one of his great performances of his career. For somebody who's not known for being like the greatest actor, but being like one of the friendliest people, him playing kind of like an a-hole, a little bit of an a-hole with complex is fascinating. I think it works. I think he does a nice job. Once again, Cameron Diaz and Matt Bomer are pretty good standouts in this movie as his friends, who feel, like I said, fake at the beginning. And Jonah Hill gives a Jonah Hill performance. So overall, I like this movie. I think it's fun. I think it's entertaining. It's very coarse. It's very dark, but I like dark comedies. I like dark humorous with messages, and I think this works. I do really do. So I think this is just a really good movie, a really entertaining movie, and I'll be interested to see what other people think when they see this movie. So overall, that's my take on Outcome, which will be on Apple TV Plus. Thank you so much for watching my review. I do appreciate it. Have you ever seen Jonah Hill's other couple movies? I think he said one called The 90s or something like that. But what do you think overall of like Keanu Reeves and Jonah Hill and Cameron Diaz, all that good stuff? But let me know in the comments. But otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.